Hello leprechauns! Unfortunately Leo the leprechaun is not here, so I am taking over today. Now just 2 seconds, let me find my sunglasses. Whoa! What is happening? So, who am I? I am like the Peter Parker of Spider-Man, and my name is John Travolta. Today leprechauns, what we're going to be going over is questions that you have asked me in DMs. Now, these questions I've not asked you to ask me. I'm happy that you do ask me because I always love to share information. However, it feels like I'm repeating myself over and over again. So, I've decided to write down all of the questions that you have individually asked me and make a video out of it, so that if anyone asks me a question in the future, I can send them this video. As you can probably tell, I like to make my life as easy as possible, and I like to be as chill as possible. So, here we go. Question 1. Let me just find in my wee book here. Question 1. What medication did you take? Olanzapine. Question 2. Did you take medication? Yes, but only one time. 3. Was your psychosis drug-induced or organic? My psychosis by definition was drug-induced. However, I don't believe that any psychosis is truly organic. I believe you can hear voices organically. However, I believe that a psychosis arises because there's trauma in the individual's life, and that needs addressed. 4. What recreational drugs did you take? A fucking lot. To summarize it, I took some psychedelics, weed, speed, all sort of party drugs, some pharmaceutical drugs like Valium. For the psychedelics, you can watch this video. Were you manic during your psychosis? If your definition of manic is to do with bipolar, then no, I was not manic. I may have had some beliefs that could be described as manic, but from what people with bipolar have described to me as manic, then I do not think so. Do you refer to your psychosis as an episode or psychotic symptoms? Both. How long were you psychotic? So this is a very vague question that I get asked a lot, but fully deep in a psychosis, I would say like 3 or 4 months, in which I was hearing voices every day. I was sometimes having visual hallucinations. I was extremely paranoid. I had delusional thoughts and beliefs, thinking that I was the Messiah and that I had to spread a message throughout the world. That I believed that the English were using MI5 to put a mind reading device inside of my head, and that my thoughts were broadcasted around the world. About 3 or 4 months of that. Did you understand your delusions were only delusions? At the start, no. I believed in my delusions. Did you experience hallucinations? Yes, visual and auditory. Do you know where the hallucinations came from? Sort of. I mean, the hallucinations came from my mind. However, I believe they stemmed from trauma that needed to be addressed. Have you had therapy? Yes. After my mental breakdown, I got put into a crisis recovery team with a list of mental health nurses. It would be that I seen each one, well, I would usually go between each one and have a new one each day, shared between about 7 people. It was quite chaotic. Some of them were nice, some of them weren't great. The majority were great. Then I got passed on to a single individual mental health nurse, and she was amazing, so compassionate, so helpful, and I had her for about 4 months before the mental health system gradually cut me off. So I went from seeing them every day to every 2 days to every week to every 2 weeks to every 3 weeks, and then eventually I didn't hear back for like 2 months, and I was getting in a really bad headspace, and so I rang them and was like, what the fuck? Where the fuck is the mental health service? And then I got given a psychologist. Now this psychologist, he was great if I had any questions to ask. However, He was not very compassionate with a lot of things. For example, he believed that you cannot be addicted to porn, which is just ridiculous, as you can be addicted to anything, psychologically, and physiologically addiction is a different thing. Physiological addictions are more related to the likes of heroin or alcohol or cigarettes, but psychological addictions can be just as hard to get off. And honestly, would I have recovered with just the help of the psychologist? Definitely fucking not. I'd be in a worse situation. There were sometimes I had phone calls with this psychologist in particular that I felt worse after. The only reason that I have recovered is because of me taking responsibility for all of my own actions. So this is for you out there who are looking for therapy or are in therapy. You cannot solely rely on your therapist. You have to take the action yourself to implement habits every day to change your brain and change your life. You must take the responsibility to change your own circumstances and environment. Only you can do this. A good therapist will show you the door and hopefully teach you how to walk through the door, but they cannot do the walking through the door for you. Question 12. Did you take CBD? I did take CBD. For a while I was taking the oil and I did not find that it was that beneficial. And then, because I really had the urge to smoke some weed, I decided to get some CBD bud. So, bud that literally looks like weed. Here's a video of it, for example. It smells like weed and it tastes similar to weed but more healthy. And it was good for a short time. However, I started to not enjoy it after that. For a while I was going out on nights out with my mates and they'd be drinking alcohol and smoking weed. And so I decided to drink non-alcoholic beer and smoke CBD. And quite often I was just feeling terrible after it. So I sort of trying to avoid that situation now. And now I never smoke CBD. I've actually got like 5 grams lying in my house. So if any of you are in Ireland and you want some CBD, give me a shout. Question 13. How do I stop smoking weed? So this is a fucking huge question. How you can stop smoking weed, you honestly have to experiment. How I experimented was by changing my environment. All of my weed smoking friends, I stopped spending as much time with them. And by as much time with them, I mean like once or twice a year. It sucks, but it's what you've got to do, honestly. Because if you continuously surround yourself with that environment, the temptation is always going to be there, and it's so much easier to just do it. By removing yourself from the environment, it makes it so much easier. So that's step 1. Step 2, get rid of all the weed that you have. I honestly, with cannabis, do not believe in gradually going off it. I believe in going cold turkey with cannabis. Because cannabis is not a physiological addiction, it is a psychological addiction. And so after I think 2 weeks, it does get a lot easier. So yeah, get rid of all the shit that's in your house. Stage 3 then is, with the time that you usually spent smoking cannabis, use that time to do something else. In particular, what I do is I do loads of exercise. I do loads of running, taekwondo, high intensity workouts. I joined a taekwondo class. I do fuckloads of yoga. And whenever I feel the temptation, I also meditate and journal. Because usually it's not the weed that I want, but it's the feeling that I get with the weed, or else the community that I had with the weed. And so definitely find a new community. Johan Hari says that the opposite of addiction is connection. So find that new community in order to break away from that cannabis. And a final stage 4 is you could go to AA, or the other AA for drugs. I can't remember what it's called, I've actually really been wanting to join an AA, and I know I've actually said in a video before, like, I'm going to join AA, but guess what? I fucking didn't do it. So I have no problem with it while I'm in Portugal, honestly. I did have a serious problem with alcohol while I was in Portugal, but since I've been removed from that environment, all the temptations are gone. Whenever I go home, it is going to be a different story. But we'll see. I recommend it for you. We've got a bit of wind here, so apologies if it's fucking up the noise. Question 14. How long did it take for you to get out of psychosis? So this is similar to the other question of how long your psychosis lasted. Forgetting how to speak here. How long it took for me to get out of psychosis? Like, about 1.5 years, I reckon, in total. And by that I mean to completely stop hearing voices. I still have intrusive thoughts, however, I'm more in control over them. Question 15. Can you recover from psychosis? And the answer to this is yes, you 100% can. What can I do for my partner recovering from psychosis? This is a difficult question, and probably I'm gonna need to do a full video on it because I cannot share the best advice, as I've never helped a partner recovering from psychosis. I've only helped myself. So I think the best thing that you can do to help your partner is to change yourself. And by that, I mean to love yourself, respect yourself, and be compassionate for yourself. Also, love your partner, be respectful for your partner, and be compassionate for your partner. If you have unhealthy habits, then change those unhealthy habits. As by you changing your unhealthy habits, you're encouraging your partner to also change their unhealthy habits. And so how you can do this is through diet, exercise, mindfulness, therapy, medication if it works for you. Honestly, I believe that recovery is not possible with medication. And you're probably best watching Lauren from Living Well with Schizophrenia's page on her partner's advice on how to deal with someone with schizophrenia, because schizophrenia and psychosis is pretty much the same thing. All of my symptoms were the exact same symptoms of a schizophrenic. So yeah, I'll add that video in the link in the description. Question 17. How do I stop the voices? Sorry folks, there's turbulence on the plane. Please fasten your seatbelt. Yeah, how do I stop the voices? Here's a video I did in this. This video is a starting point for how to stop the voices. Of course, you need to be consistent with it, and you need to experiment with everything else. So I recommend you check out the full How to Battle Psychosis playlist that I've created. It's not quite finished yet, but hopefully it will be soon. How do I stop intrusive thoughts? Here's a video on that. How do I tell someone about my psychosis? Here's a video on that. How do I get off anti-psychotic medication? So, Jesus man, my farts have been so bad in Portugal. How do I get off anti-psychotic medication? I'm not the best person to ask about this, honestly, because I only took the anti-psychotic medication once. I never became reliant on it. Actually, becoming reliant on the anti-psychotic medication was a massive fear for me, because I had heard of thousands of people, like I had met probably 1,000 people that had become reliant on pharmaceutical medication. So I didn't trust it before I got psychosis, which I am so blessed. If you have been taking antipsychotic medication for a couple of years, then all the professional psychologists, what they recommend is to gradually go off it. Because if you go cold turkey on your antipsychotic medication, then your psychotic symptoms are going to return, but even harder. That's also what I'd like to add about cannabis. Whenever you do go cold turkey on the cannabis, your dreams are going to be fucked up. Because whenever you smoke cannabis, what it does is prevents you from dreaming. And so if you can imagine a lid being put on your dreaming pipe, whenever you stop taking cannabis, the lid is taken off the pipe and water just explodes out of it, And all these dreams are so vivid and so fucked up. So prepare yourself for that. And back to the anti-psychotic medication, treat it like any other addiction. So some resources that I recommend for you is looking at like Russell Brand and how he overcame addiction, because he was actually diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I believe. And like, you know, if he can do it, then we can all do it. Why do I think I am the chosen one? So, I mean, this is not me saying that I think this, but a lot of people with psychosis think they are the Messiah, and I most certainly did whenever I was deep in a psychosis too. Here's a video for that. Why do I have psychosis? Here's another video for that. And finally, question 23. What did I do to recover from psychosis? To summarize what I did to recover from psychosis is I experimented. I tried to look at professional physicians, psychiatrists, nutritionists, psychologists, everything to do with psychosis and the human body and the brain. I tried to study it. So a few places that I recommend you study is Daniel Amen. Look at everything that he recommends. Reading the book by Stan Grof called Spiritual Emergency. This book helped me loads. And reading the book Madness Explained by Dr. Philip Bentel. I think that's his name. Philip Bentel, by the way, if you're listening, please reply to my email. I've asked you so many times to come on a podcast for me, and you said yes, and then you ignored me. What the fuck, man? You're supposed to be a psychologist. You're supposed to be compassionate. Where's the love, bro? Fucking preach it, man. Telling you, man, these fucking farts. Toxic. Alright, and that's all the questions I could find from flicking through Instagram messages and YouTube comments. So, leprechauns, if you have any more questions, then please write them down in the comments, and I will reply to them in the comments. I'm probably not going to make another video on it, and I'll just tell people in the future who ask me any questions, look at this video and look at the comments. Thank you so much for listening, leprechauns. I love you all. Keep on fighting psychosis and keep being a sound cunt. Love you all. Graham Moore, Slán Ó Bhaile.